Good morning to everybody. Thank you very much to be connected with the Solar Forum. A new edition of this one virtual, expecting that Sunday we'll back to organize or we'll start to organize this Solar Forum in a physical format. But the advantage to have an online forum is that we can have a very impressive panel of experts, authorities, and so on, that maybe in a physical one will be much more difficult. Today, the Global Solar Council team has prepared for you a very good panel of very interesting people and very expert that will allow you to have the possibility in 2 days to have a wide vision about what happened in our sector. And in summary, what happened in our sector? But we live a very good moment. The last year, even in the case that there was one pandemic year, our economical sector was one of the few sectors that improved too much his introduction in the markets. A new year, record year of 127 gigawatts connected to the grid. That's an impressive figure. I repeat, in a pandemic year. Our sector showed his resilience, his capacity to adapt even in this special situation, very special situation that everybody expect will be fully finished in all the countries of the world very soon. And it's clear for everybody now that with the right natural condition, sunny hour, sunny weather, sunny hours, enough hours of sun, we are the most cheap and the most clean way to produce electricity. And electricity is the cleanest and the more important source of decarbonization of the energy sector. Then PV became a source of quality of life and prosperity, because we allow the citizen to have the possibility to obtain electricity with less part of his income. We help the industries to be more competitive, to reduce costs, and we help everybody to have a better life with fighting against the crisis, the climate emergency and pollution. And this atmosphere of optimism in our sector is reflected in the survey that the Global Solar Council organizes every year between the companies to know what is the feelings about the future of the sector. This year, the outlook improve the degree of companies that consider that his sales will be increased in relation to last year. Last year, the 72% consider that his sales will be increased in the early future. Now, this percentage was increased to the 81%. And very important, the most of the companies consider that his government now are acting in the right way to support PV. This means that the most of the government now has able to understand that PV is an important tool. I think PV is an important tool now, not only in relation with energy policy. In some countries that are implementing recovery plans from the economic crisis created by the COVID, they are introducing subsidies or way to promote PV, not only as a tool for the energy policy, if not as a tool of economical policy. Because we are a wise way to invest in new infrastructure to produce cheap electricity, but at the same time, with some of one of our aspects, self-consumption, distributed energy, is a way to distribute the aids at a global level in the countries, in the world, to everybody, big companies, small enterprises, or citizens in the whole geography of the world. But this nice moment, this honey moment, is not has not some clouds in the future, or some, we can say better, some challenge that still we need to face. Some are the old challenge. We need to better permitting and simplification. This, particularly in this moment, that we can help to develop the economy, to improve the economic situation of the countries, we need to face the administrative barriers, the permitting that delay too much time between one investor wanted to invest in a plant and when all this process is finished. In some countries, we are not only seeing that the permitting process is reducing, if not even is increasing. We need to improve better market rules. In some countries now, we have no financial problems for plants. The opposite, we have a lot of finance in the market. It's a market in a liquidity. But in other countries, it's the opposite. Still, it's difficult to find the right financial conditions in a competitive world with a competitive they need competitive conditions, and particularly new financial mechanism, a new imaginative financial mechanism to extend PV, particularly some African countries or non-OECD countries. And for the self-consumption, still there are many barriers in many countries because the electricity system are not prepared administratively, regulatory for the self-consumption, for this idea that everyone could become his own utility company. And we need to remove all these barriers, or we have the barrier that in many countries, electricity prices for the end consumer are heavily subsidized, and then it's very difficult to compete. But particularly, we have two new challenges. In the last months, we have perceived that the price of the PV that were decreasing constantly in the past are increasing. The increasing price of the raw materials and some problems with the production of panels in Asian countries are increasing the price. These price increasing will be structural or conjunctural. In some months, we'll see again that our price will continue decreasing, or the era of continuing price fall is finished for PV. I hope that we'll find an answer in this day, or still we'll reflect together about this question in these days. And the second challenge, and particularly in OECD countries, become the biggest one, is the increasing social contestation. There is social positive receptivity about PV plants at utility scale that in the past was very widely accepted. When the people see in his country many projects of PV start to growing the NIMBY effect. Yeah, it's very dangerous because the people say, yes, it's okay. I like PV, but not in my backyard, not here. Go with the plant to other place. And that is very dangerous because we can find situation where the places will be possible will be quite reduced. And for me, it's some kind of neo-negationism, climatic negationism, more dangerous because They don't say, no, I agree. Even the same people say, oh, the environmental targets must be more ambitious. But at the same time, they doesn't want the plants in his town, in his area. That produce that in the sector we must change, especially developer company must change and must adapt his way of work to these conditions. It's necessary more communication, to work more connected with local communities, to work more in the way to integrate the plants in the local biodiversity. Plants are, we must explain the people, if we do the things in the right way, plants will not be a danger for the biodiversity. The opposite will become an opportunity for the biodiversity. Our plants can become a reserve for biodiversity. And two, we need to work very heavily. We take in consideration that we need to live the most economical local impact as possible in the local communities. We need to work in the area, more local content, to prioritize local employees, to look formulas of association with the local communities or the local people in the plants. If not, these problems will continue growing. But two, at the level of research and development, we need to focus our research and development in formulas to increase the productivity of the plants by square meter, or how to reduce the needs of water. How you see, we still have challenge, maybe always will have challenge in our sector, but I'm convinced that we are a very resilient sector. We are in the right way of the history, and we overcome this challenge. Thank you to everybody for your attention, and particularly thank you to this impressive panel, the experts with follow me now, starting with was for Mr. Camarena, was not possible to participate today, but he sent a video to us. And we start with this video. We'll follow with Ulrike Lehr, Chief of the Policy Unit of IRENA, following Ajay Mathur, General Director of ISA, the International Solar Alliance, Paolo Frankl, Chief of the Renewable Energy Division, Head of the Renewable Energy Division of the International Energy Agency, and Hans-Josef, President of the Energy Watch Group. An impressive group of people that will, in 1 hour, will give to us a very wide picture of what is the situation, our sector, and what is our future. Thank you to everybody, and I will continue with the video of Mr. La Camera.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it's a pleasure for me to speak at this event today. A deep transformation of the global energy sector is essential to achieve our climate and development goals. And while we seek to accelerate energy transition, we must ensure that everyone is on board. Time is of the essence. The significance of the choices we make in the coming years is clear. And we must take the right one. There is no longer room for error. As outlined in IRENA's World Energy Transition Outlook, launched last week, IRENA considers electrification and energy efficiency to be the main decarbonization drivers, enabled by renewables, green hydrogen, and sustainable biomass. And this technology can shape the avenue to lead us out of the crisis, toward a decarbonized energy system while creating jobs and boosting GDP. The socioeconomic benefits of the transition is realized even in the short term. By 2030, the 1.5 Celsius pathway would boost the global GDP 2.5% above the current plans and strategies. Solar will play a significant role as one of the leading renewable energy technologies in the energy transition. Also because utility-scale solar PV can now compete with the cheapest new fossil fuel-fired capacity. Renewable energy jobs will increase to 43 million in 2050. By 2030, renewable jobs will more than triple to 38 million, in which solar PV account for the largest share. In 2019, solar PV yielded 3.75 million jobs. IRENA's new job report will be launched in September with an update on this. But we also know that there is not just number. They represent worker, family and communities. So we caution not to oversimplify, but carefully and proactively manage possible misalignment, be it in timelines, skills, or geographies. As we show many opportunities that exist along the renewable value chain to provide insight that are practical and have real-life application. The task ahead is difficult, and we are entering an uncharted territory. It is evident that energy decisions can no longer be made in vacuum or limited to technology choices. They need to be reconciled with economics and human development goals, environmental concern, and financial avenues. They need a comprehensive policy framework that considers people, prosperity, and planet. This is the time to be decisive, uncompromising, and courageous. The energy transition is an opportunity we cannot afford to miss. IRENA, as a prime platform for international cooperation, will assertively lead the global energy transition toward a more resilient, inclusive, and equitable world. It is my hope that our contribution will help navigate the global race to decarbonize for the benefit of all. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you to Mr. La Camera to share this work with us. Now I will give the floor to Mrs. Ulrike Lehr from IRENA too. Ms. Ulrike.
Yeah, thank you, José. Let me just share my screen. Did it work? Somebody say yes.
Perfect, perfect.
Thank you. Okay, let me just detail, and good day, good morning, good afternoon, and almost good night, since this is a global event. I welcome everybody who's listening in, and I'm really happy I have the opportunity to illustrate a little more what our Director General has just shared in his video message, which is our latest publication. We are very proud of the World Energy Transitions Outlook, which outlines the 1.5C pathway. And as the Director General has said, electrification, efficiency, renewables are at the core of this energy transition. Efficiency, of course, is also. And when we look at the electricity generation and capacity by SOAR that the Outlook envisions, then we see what is meant by electrification. You see the much higher amount of electricity that will be needed by 2050 on the left side of this graph. And on the right side, you see how it distributes across the different renewable energy technology, and that there's only very, very little room left for fossil fuel-based generation. So variable renewables will contribute 74% in total to electricity generation. And as you can see here, solar PV is the main pillar of electricity generation by 2050. What does it take? It takes a lot of money. Money makes not only the world, but also the energy transition go around. And it needs new investment priorities, which already begin, of course, as of today, as José has also shared in his introductory words. So investment needs to go to renewables, efficiency, and electrification to a much larger extent than is currently planned. So where our current plans will take us is $98 trillion US, which is already accumulated, that is, which is already a lot. But in to reach our targets of the 1.50 scenario, we need an additional 33 trillion US dollars. And a lot will go into renewables, and as such, a lot will need to go into solar. Now, it does need the right framework to arrive at this target. So the guiding framework of what we call the VETO, World Energy Transition Outlook Theory of Change, is addressing a lot of the technological issues, a lot of the megawatt things. But when you go down in this list, you see some of the items that also José was pointing out. So first of all, we have to adopt market structures, but not only the electricity markets, but the whole institutional framework to come from the still fossil-oriented institutional framework to a renewables and such also, of course, PV-oriented framework. And we do have to take people with us, so we don't encounter not in my backyard or any activities and any hard feelings towards the energy transition. So we need to have a set of policies for resilience, inclusions, equities, and also need to protect workers and communities. And I think a lot of this also needs to be addressed at solar PV. Last but definitely not least, we have to ensure that all countries and regions have an opportunity to realize the benefits of the transition. And the benefits of the transition, of course, showcased in a, let's say, very open way, are also convincing people to buy into the energy transition and to be on board with us. One of the benefits, of course, that also Francesco has been mentioning is growth. It's a higher pathway for GDP under the 1.5C pathway. It provides a boost in global GDP. And in the first decade in particular, also making up in a way for what the pandemic has done to the global economies, you see a large difference in GDP from the planned energy scenario. In terms of jobs, we already heard there will be 43 million renewable energy jobs by 2050. And here you can see the comparison between the planned energy scenario and the more ambitious scenario in terms of jobs. And you see the large role that solar energy and in particular PV is playing in this breakdown and in this development. On the right side, you also see the structure of the jobs that we are projecting. You see it by technology, a really large number of solar energy. You see it also by segment of the value chain, which is important for people to know because, for instance, jobs in operations and maintenance are permanent jobs that really provides a more, durable livelihood as opposed to manufacturing and construction and installation, which of course need the continuous pipeline of building new capacity. And interesting also to look at what are the skills and occupational needs in the future. So here we see that we are, as the experience with the technology progresses, we are having a much larger demand for workers and technicians in the future. When you look along the photovoltaic value chain, you see how this breaks down to the different phases of the value chain. So procurement and manufacturing, installation and grid connection, but also operation and maintenance, among other things, of course, security, guarding, and all of these things have contribute differently to the jobs. And if I may make a personal remark being on this panel, we are also, in particular for the photovoltaic industry, currently having a survey out regarding gender in the photovoltaic industry. And for those of you who are listening and who have not replied to that survey, please do so. There still seems to be a little bit of a need to kind of gender balance the PV industry a bit more. What we are doing in the World Energy Transition Outlook, we're also having a broader perspective on welfare, which is of course trying to go beyond the mere discussion of megawatt and to make also the whole pathway more accessible also to the people who have to join into. And our dimensions are the environmental dimension, the social dimension. I'd already talked about the economic dimension, but also in the light of the next 2 days, of course, access is a very, very important dimension when you look at the welfare results of the energy transition. And you're seeing that the 1.5C scenario is doing much better, or at least better, in most of the welfare dimensions that are shown here. And with this, I can only kind of hopefully close the circle of this brief presentation and reiterate that this all requires a comprehensive policy framework. And being the head of socioeconomics and policy, it's obvious why I am reiterating that, but IRENA has been doing a lot of work on the different levels of policies that are needed, starting from the deployment policies to integrating policies, not only into the grid, but also into the system, to enabling policies, and lately also with our collaboration on with our collaborative framework on just transition regarding structural change, regarding just transition policies, bundling everything up into the holistic global policy framework that is applied in our project. I think I need to stop here. I could talk for an hour, but I make room for other people too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to you. Very interesting speech. Now is Mr. Ajay Mathur, General Director of the International Solar Alliance, will take the floor. Mr. Mathur, your turn.
Thank you. Thank you very much, José. It's such a pleasure to be with you and the Global Solar Alliance. And I thank you for this invitation to speak at your flagship event, together with colleagues from IRENA, the IEA, and the Energy Watch Group. I'm absolutely delighted that in this year, which, as José, you said, is really a year in which change is happening, both in terms of the impact of solar, but also on the other side, on the economics of solar, that these 2 days would lead to a lot of thought-provoking discussions and fruitful sessions. I would like to share with you my thoughts on, obviously, renewable electricity, solar electricity, but go a little bit broader. The way I look at it is that as we look at an energy transition, it's not just the electricity needs, it's also the non-electricity needs, the fuel needs, the heat needs that we have, which will need to be addressed. And the way we look at it is that renewable energy should be able to meet all those needs, albeit, and this is letting the cat out of the bag, although what we see is that there are other sources, obviously wind and biomass, but also fuels such as hydrogen, particularly green hydrogen coming from renewable energy, which would enable this transition to occur. Consequently, we foresee the future as one which is built up on a future which is, and let me see if I can make this full screen. Okay, I think I need to change it. Yes, I hope this is visible. The point that we wanted to make was that there are multiple ways and multiple inputs that we need to carry out in order for the transition to occur. We obviously are looking at solar production, and particularly as far as industries are concerned, as far as cities are concerned, as far as commercial or agricultural uses are concerned. We need to focus obviously on grid connected PV, but also on on-site solar production. That's first. The second point that we want to make is that with the cost reduction in the cost of renewable energy, and in particular solar energy, we are therefore looking at the availability of electricity, and therefore looking at the electrification of as many energy needs as possible. And I think what has been talked about a great deal is obviously the electrification of the transport sector, particularly the urban transport sector. But I think we want to expand it to the industrial sector as well, where in particular the heating needs could well be met by electricity. The third point that we want to make is that in areas where we need to do this, we need to bring in money. Ulrike spoke about the fact that resources are needed. Yes, of course they are. We believe that there is two things that are important. One is the business model. Anybody who invests should feel comfortable that they will get back their investment with an adequate amount of profit. In order to do that, I think there are two things that are needed. One is that the government policies in countries enable that. And the second is that the equity is available, the green equity, the equity that is to be invested in green projects is available to move in that direction. This is easier said than done, because in order for investors to feel comfortable that their investments will be returned, we need to have in place a risk mitigation facility. And this is the central argument that I would like us to move ahead with. This kind of a facility which makes comfortable investments in renewable energy is as important as the kinds of local policies and processes that enable the payments for renewable energy services to be made. It's only when the two of them come together that we will see investments occurring, particularly in the countries where the large amount of new capacity, new electricity capacity and new solar capacity is expected to be created, and that is in particularly the developing countries. We see corporate leadership as providing the first step in moving in this direction. We have seen it occurring in many countries. This is the, I think together we need to work with the corporate sector to see what is it that we can do to help them move ahead. I had spoken of us moving beyond the electricity sector. We will electrify all the applications that are possible, but what about the applications that are not possible? And it is our belief that using renewable electricity to convert into green hydrogen helps us create a fuel which is then viable. There is a challenge. There is the cost challenge. Today, the vast amount of hydrogen that is used in the world is used in the refining sector and in the fertilizer sector. It's obtained from the reformation of gas at about $2 a kg. When we talk of green hydrogen, even at the prices at which renewable electricity, solar electricity is available, it comes out to be about $5 per kg. So we are talking of a reduction from $5 per kg to $2 per kg over the next 10 years or so. This is possible. This is possible because industries see a number of price points at which a number of applications happen. In countries where diesel generator sets are used, $5 per kg of hydrogen costs would still make hydrogen-based fuels cost viable. As we move into the transport sector, we are looking at something in the order of about $3.50 per kg. As we move into the steel sector, we are looking at something of the order of about a little over $2 per kg. In other words, the cascading effect would help us bring green hydrogen into the mainstream. The other point that I want to focus on is energy efficiency. We know that solar electricity is a high value product, which implies that for use as a high value product, we have to use it with air conditioners, with lighting, with heating opportunities that are as energy efficient as possible. And I think focusing on lighting, LED bulbs, which use a lot less electricity, 1/10 of the electricity as compared to incandescent bulbs, energy efficient air conditioners, which use half as much electricity as today's air conditioners. When you combine them with solar power and waste heat recovery, we see that it makes cost-effective sense. And I want to emphasize this issue. We see economic benefits as being the key drivers for change. All of us want change because it has here and now climate change benefits. But the rationale that a lot of industry uses, that a lot of commercial users use, is based on hard economics. We therefore see us providing an opportunity for economic benefits as being the first step, and then climate as a strong co-benefit. I know that this is quite opposite to how many of us think, but as we look at how we have seen change occur, we notice that the way to people's heart is through their purses. We therefore would like that the solar technologies and the other low and zero carbon technologies that are already cost effective are taken up by the solar industry and packaged so that they together form a service package that users find irresistible. I would like to end by focusing on the other fuels that we were speaking about. Green hydrogen, biomass to biofuels, using hydrogen in steel making, in fertilizers and plastics. Again, these are areas where we need to, the solar community needs to invest. We need to work with users so that they can help in becoming the first users. First users have a great advantage. They are the people who define how movement will occur in the years to come. The short story that I want to leave you with is that in the solar community, we need to look at the bigger picture and work with our partners, the users, to ensure that they enjoy cheaper electricity, they enjoy cheaper energy. Together, we are rewriting history. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mathur. Thank you very much to remark and remember to us that we need to found solutions to the economical competitive solution to storage. If not, the possibilities of our sector will be reduced. The key role that green hydrogen can play in this sense. And thank you very much for your speech. Now is it turn for Mr. Paolo Frankl, very well known in our sector from many years and a key person in the change of the vision that International Energy Agency has now in relation with our technology. Paolo, you could take the floor.
Thank you so much, José. And let me try to share the screen. I hope you can see my slides. So thank you so much for inviting me, for inviting the IEA, and to share with you some of the results of our recent net zero emission roadmap globally to 2050 and the role, the phenomenal role that PV plays in it. And I think I would just start from where Ajay ended. The need to look at the whole picture, not just at electricity, but at the whole picture, at the users, at the hard to abate sectors, and what these are also the indirect things that PV can do. but I will then focus one aspect in particular on developing economies and Africa. Now, first, on our roadmap, it is a roadmap of economic growth. It is a roadmap that increases the GDP by 0.4 percentage per annum. It is a roadmap in which 2050, the GDP is more than twice larger than today, but the whole energy system consumption is smaller by 10%, thanks to a huge investment and effort in energy efficiency. Number two, it is a system which it's a transition which goes from a system dominated still today by fossil fuels by 80% in the whole energy to a system which is the other way around. Non-fossils are more than 80%, and the remaining part of fossils is abated with carbon capture, use, and storage. And as you know, the position of the IEA is that we need all the technologies that we know today, plus the ones that we don't know yet, in order to get there. But notably, all solar forms together become the first source of energy supply in 2050. This is my third important message from this slide. Now, the roadmap has two main pillars, this decade and then the longer term. In this decade, we really need to massively expand, all the clean technologies that we know, starting precisely from solar PV and wind, which need to ramp up, according to our calculations, by 4 times by 2030. So to have annual additions in the order of more than 1,000 gigawatt per year. I repeat, 1 terawatt per year in 2030 of wind and solar together. This is roughly 4 times for both technologies compared to the record level of 2020. Other technologies, Ajay, you spoke about the uses, electric cars. They need to ramp up by a factor 20. And most importantly, the effort on energy efficiency, which needs the active participation of millions, billions of people, need to improve to 4% per year in terms of energy intensity to GDP. In the longer term, and I will not certainly go into the details, the roadmap has defined some 400 technology milestones in all sectors, electricity, industry, transport, buildings, to get to a net zero emission by 2050. I will only focus here on the renewables one. First, the additions in 2030 of solar and wind, but also hydrogen. I can only agree with Ajay and Ulrike before. We need to look at all the sectors, and part that cannot be electrified will need low carbon fuels. And just to give the order of magnitude, we think that 850 gigawatt of electrolyzers will be needed by 2030. I'm not speaking about 2050, I'm speaking about tomorrow, 2030. Now, this is 2,500 times more than today. Now, in 2040, we need half of the fuels for aviation coming from sustainable sources, either advanced biofuels or synthetic fuels from low carbon hydrogen. And in 2050, as I will show you a little bit more in detail, 70% of all electricity generation will come from solar and wind, which of course calls for a massive investments in flexibility measures, and 90% of the electricity will be from renewables. And indeed, this is the electricity picture. Contrary to the energy, electricity ramps up massively to numbers that are very similar to the IRENA roadmap, above 70,000 terawatt-hour by 2050, and 90% of this is renewables, and 70% of this is solar and PV combined. It's roughly the same contribution of 25,000 terawatt-hours per year. This is the equivalent to the whole world generation today, almost. Now, this is a massive change. And in terms of capacity, this is how it looks on the left side. And here now I want to stress how much of this needs to go in emerging markets and developing economies. That's the massive bulk of the new capacities that need to go there in order, in line to what the event is called, to not leave anyone behind. And that we involve all the emerging economies, all the developing countries, all the users. Something like almost more than 10,000 gigawatt are just in emerging market and economies by 2050. Now, are we on track? And here comes my final consideration. Not really. We published another report recently, which is financing in clean energy technologies in emerging economies and developing economies. Now, there is a lot of money available in the world, but it's not necessarily where it should be. And the investments in clean energy technologies and emerging economies has been actually stagnating in the last 5 years. And on the right here, you see where they should be in the period 2026-30. We need to increase this of 7 times. Now, why they are not there? Because the risk of investment is still too high. There are country risk, there are off-taker risks, there are a variety of risks that are not yet solved. And this is the biggest urgency, in my opinion, to really implement the numbers of the net zero emission roadmap that both IRENA and IA have produced. Now, one word in particular on Africa. These are the annual capacity additions in Africa from all renewables. Of course, they go up and down, very, very much dependent on hydro. But if you look carefully, even if solar PV is increasing, this is a tiny bit of the global market. It's absolutely a minor thing. Overall renewables in 2020 was less than 1% installed in Africa than in the total world. And even if solar is a little bit increasing, this is absolutely order of magnitude below the potential of the African continent. So there is a massive urgency to do 2 things. First, to do the right policies, creating the conditions to attract the financing. And second, then, to work together with international financial institutions, with international organizations and governments to de-risk investments. I will stop it here. And of course, I welcome any question in the discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paolo. Thank you very much, Paolo, for a very interesting speech and for remembering us the need to create these right policy conditions, right economical conditions to attract investment to avoid that the dark areas of the planet will become electricity, because that is a big responsibility for the electricity sector, for the energy sector, and particularly for our sector, as an important part of the solution. Then we'll finish this round of intervention with Hans-Josef, President of the Energy Watch Group. Mr. Hans-Josef, you have the floor.
Thank you, José Donoso. Thank you for organizing this very important conference. Thank you inviting the Energy Watch Group and my person as a speaker. I think it is very important to speak clear about the necessity, what we have to do in the world to protect our climate, and over the possibilities, how we can do it. At the moment, we see that most greenhouse gas emissions, about 60% of all greenhouse gas emissions, are emitted by the use of fossil sources, oil, gas, coal. We have to replace them very soon because it is now a great problem, and we see already big disasters in the world with the climate change. Therefore, we have more to speak over the political actions toward 100% renewables energy and climate protection. When we have to replace fossil emissions, we must come to 100% renewables. And this must come much faster than most people believe. and on political level is discussed. When we look to the climate disasters, what we see already today at 1.2 degrees global warming, we have very serious news from Madagascar, 3 years lasting droughts, lot of sandstorms. 1 million people face starvation. This is today, not in the future. We see a catastrophic temperature heat wave in Canada. This leads to a lot of burning woods and others. A village like Lytton was destroyed within a few hours. All the people lost their home. This is today. And I could show you today a lot of other catastrophes from the world at 1.2 degrees. When we will have 1.5 degrees, all these disasters will be much, much higher and more. So the question is, how can we achieve 1.5 degrees? When we stay at 1.2, we must recognize that in 1 decade, the addition of the temperature is about 0.3. We will achieve, like the fewest scientific reports from NASA or World Meteorological Organization in Geneva shows, the world will achieve 1.5 degrees by 2030 latest. We cannot go to climate neutrality by 2050. This exceeds much faster the 1.5 degrees target. Climate neutrality by 2050 leads to a 3 or 4 degrees world, nothing else. And the 3 degrees world means an extinction of the humankind society, like we have it already in Madagascar and in other regions. So everything what is discussed in the world comes too late. And the question is, do we have a chance to go faster? Yes, we have a chance. Energy Watch Group published some weeks ago a new report for Germany to go 100% renewables over all energy sector, electricity, transport sector, building sector, industry sector by 2030. Our findings show we can go this way. Yes, it is very ambitious, no question, but the necessity is here. And to go it faster means, for example, the most important pillar within 100% renewable solar must grow by 86 gigawatt per year the next 10 years. We stay at the moment in Germany by 5 gigawatt expansion per year. You see how fast the growth rates must increase. We see it possible. We need new factories, plenty of them. The money is there. The addition of wind, of solar, to solar and bioenergy with hydropower, geothermal is possible. We have enough technologies with storage system, batteries, hydropump power stations, or green hydrogen. Please, only green hydrogen. Hydrogen from natural gas is polluting the world plenty with methane in the chain of natural gas. So we have to go to 100% renewables very fast. Green hydrogen plays a very important role. And it is possible on an economic way. We can show it not only in Germany, we have also a report over the whole world to go to 100% renewables, published it 2 years ago. And this report, like plenty other reports, show 100% renewable energy world is cheaper than the today's world. The photovoltaics and wind power is already today the cheapest source of energy production. Much cheaper than nuclear, fossil gas, hard coal. It makes no sense to pollute the world and spend a lot of money with using fossil and nuclear sources. We have the chance to go very fast on an economic way to 100% renewables, because now solar and wind, batteries and others are the cheapest source. We see it already. In USA, some utilities close down coal power and nuclear power, and they say solar, wind plus batteries is cheaper than fossil and nuclear. But we have to go to a disruptive new way in innovations with the political system as well. And therefore we have to discuss what is the best political framework to increase it. And our findings is what we proposed in 2000 in the German parliament, the feed-in tariff, the fixed price is the best way. Not auctioning. Auctioning hinders in the world the expansion of renewable energies because they exclude decentralized actors, community people, farmers, and others. And we have a wonderful example how the switch to a feed-in tariff will very fast, unbelievable fast increase the investment into solar. This is Vietnam. Vietnam invested in solar roofs in 2019, 378 megawatt. In 1 year, they increased it 30 times more to 9,500 gigawatts. Why did it happen? They switched to a wonderful feed-in tariff away from auctioning system. This shows that the world has a possibility and that politics plays a crucial role. All the speakers before me mentioned already, it is crucial to go to combined investment into renewables, sector coupling, control it, invest in heat, cooling, mobility, electricity, industry with combined investment, not with single investment, storage investment. Digitalization plays a very big role. And key point is bi-directional charging, to use the batteries of the cars to balance the fluctuations of solar and wind. This is what we need to go to. And therefore is the question, what is a political framework for all nations in the world to go this way? Our political recommendations with the experience for my long time as a parliamentarian in the German parliament is feed-in tariff is crucial for small and medium scale investment into renewables, up to 50 megawatt. Auctioning can help for big investment, utility scales projects, it is okay, because they cannot be done by community and small companies. We need a new FIT law for combined 100% renewables. Give a FIT tariff for everyone who invests into 100% renewables and send it to the grid like the grid operator needs. Not only when the sun is shining and the wind is blowing, but he can balance it in his devices with batteries, with others, and can bring to the grid operators the electricity with a combination, and he can feed the grid with 100% renewables like the grid operators and the consumers need. Abolish all fossil and nuclear subsidies. International Energy Agency highlighted that every ton carbon emissions is subsidized by $100. It makes no sense to give our tax money to produce climate warming. We need the tax money for education, for infrastructure, for climate protection, and anything else. Cancel all the fossil and nuclear subsidizing. We need a carbon, methane, radioactivity tax. We must tax all the polluting what we have in the world, not only a carbon tax. That is too less. Methane is as well polluting the climate. Radioactivity makes a lot of cancer in the world. We have to stop all pollutings. We need plenty support for research on university schools, for education, all the people. And we need campaigning from the government side to go this way. Every people will go with us 100% renewable strategy. We have best examples to go this way. We have to reduce licensing obstacles. Plenty areas have plenty problems in the world to get license with a solar-free field or with a wind power station. We have to support them to go fast with the licensing. And our findings are not successful. It's a certificate system, emission trading. It does not help to go a fast track way to this situation. So political expansion, political innovation is crucial for the world. You can share our findings from the Energy Watch Group homepage, and I will invite you to go together this way. The world has no other chance. When we come too late with 100% renewables by 2050, the world will face extinction of human society. I never want this, and I believe you also not. Thank you for your attention.
Dankeschön, Herr Frau. Thank you very much. Very interesting speech too. I think it was difficult to start one forum with more impressive panel of experts, more interesting approach. Some cases different, but very interesting. Very interesting too. The point of Mr. Feld that we need to be imaginative. We need to create new policy instruments to adapt it to every country to introduce the PV as much as will be possible. Thanks to everybody. Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to share this panel with you. Now I remember all the people that is hearing us that you can fix his appointments through the B2 match system with the people that they wanted. And in 1 hour at 12 o'clock, we start with the next session. That will be very interesting too, about how solar PV is making a green recovery a reality and enabling opportunities for sustainable development for very interesting speakers. Thank you very much. We'll continue.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Paolo, great to see
Thank
you.
you to
This is
all.
Ian
Thank
here.
you to all.
Hans-Josef, look forward to seeing you. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye.